So in Japan, there's hardly a more well-known face than that of Takeshi Kitano, also known as Beat Takeshi. And as you know, he's known mostly for playing badasses. This includes yakuza, gangsters, samurai, but he's also just been in 1,000 comedy shows, political roundtable programs, theatrical films, and much more. And if we're gonna go historically, then there hasn't really been a more prominent figure from the samurai era than Toyotomi Hideyoshi. This was the peasant turned warlord who unified Japan in the 1590s. But bring together Kitano's directorial style and flair, a love of violence, dark humor, and just the story of Toyotomi's blood-soaked rise to power. And what you get is Kubi. This is a over 2-hour long samurai epic. It's crazy, hilarious, violent of course, graphic, bloody. Actually, it's pretty uneven in tone overall. But it also doesn't seem to really care whether or not you take it seriously. But most importantly is you'll be entertained. So Kubi is Takeshi Kitano's first film in about 6 years. This is following from his 2017 film Outrage, Coda. And apparently it's been in production for over 30 years. It's in fact been so long that Akira Kurosawa himself once expressed hopes for its success. And that in itself should just show you just how long it's been. If we look at it, it was being produced near the beginning of Kitano's cinematic boom. This is where the director's signature violent and funny cops and mafioso films were turning heads overseas. So in that way, it makes sense why Kubi took so long to just develop. And it's quite a big project, especially for the director. The budget was 1.5 billion yen, that's about 10 million US dollars, and most Japanese films now just cost around 1 to 5 million US dollars. We can compare this to Godzilla Minus One, which just cost 15 million. But it is a big enough budget to give us just numerous action set pieces. Also, really nice costumes, and of course just streams of the over-the-top blood that we expect from this director. So overall, the film itself just looks really good. And all this goes into portraying a rather cynical version of the Azuchi Momoyomo period. This was from 1568 to year 1600. This time period covers when the powerful warlord Oda Nobunaga seemed poised to just conquer the entirety of Japan, and just ends more than a century of civil war. Kitano himself stars as Hashiba Hideyoshi, later to be known as Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and this is one of Oda's most trusted generals. But trust itself is a relative term in this film. As you'll see, backstabbings are aplenty, and this is both in the metaphorical and literal sense. And if you're familiar with the director's style, this film does have a certain cynicism to it, but also has a mixture of some humanistic warmth. This means you'll get some just sudden graphic violence that just comes out of nowhere, and then there will be scenes of just calm and muted silence. And if you study samurai, you know that there's an ugly side to them. This film seems to like to show all the worst traits of samurai. This includes stuff like headhunting, which is depicted as a normal practice in the film, which it actually was in real life for samurai. but it also just seems very alien and barbaric to us, the audience. And I also have to add that there is quite a lot of homosexual scenes in this. Kubi officially dethrones Gohato as the most gay samurai film. And it really is interesting that Takeshi is in both of those films. In fact, he actually got into trouble back in 2012 for just coming out against gay marriage. But most of us do know by now that samurai did sometimes practice homosexuality. Unfortunately, usually it involved grown men with younger boys, which is definitely a controversial subject, and one that's just better suited for another channel to discuss. But I will just give a warning because there is a few rather graphic scenes of homosexual sex, so just keep that in mind.
Yosuke!
I sort of found it to be a bit much. I mean, I don't know how many people are gonna enjoy seeing two rather old men get into it. You know, like I said, it was quite graphic, and I will spare you by not showing you clips of that. But, you know, if you're into that kind of thing, then there is that, so. But I do know that some of my viewers have described a disgust in this subject, and that's perfectly fine. You know, you shouldn't be ashamed for not wanting to see graphic sex scenes. While some also might enjoy that kind of thing, so I just found that necessary to mention. But I gotta say that I didn't really find any of the romantic relationships in this to really add much to the story. It was sort of just there, you know, maybe just for the shock value, or like I said, even just to walk back some of the criticism that Takeshi received in the past for his remarks. The movie itself is set in the lead up to really one of the most impactful and mysterious events in Japan's Warring States period. This has to do with Oda Nobunaga's sudden betrayal by his vassal Akechi Mitsuhide. This is known as the Honnoji Incident. Akechi's motive for the shocking betrayal, which came as Nobunaga was at the height of his power, still remains unknown. But without really spoiling it, the film seems to point that it has to do with Akechi being in love with another betrayer of Nobunaga. And I gotta say, Nobunaga in this is a complete lunatic. He's a deranged sadist. We see him playing around with violence as if it was a toy. And at first I thought this was a pretty weird depiction of just this historical real-life person. But then I heard that he became like this later on in his life. He developed sort of a god complex. He sounded very similar to other just sadistic warlords like Nero or Caligula. You know, just being very violent, sadistic, and even perverted. Also, Yasuke is in this film, and he's played by the biracial Japanese actor Sojima Jun. And I found it pretty interesting that he was in this. In fact, I think it's the first time I've seen this character in a film. It almost seems like he was just discovered recently. For some reason, older films don't even mention him. But Yasuke fans are definitely going to be disappointed with this portrayal. He's mostly just treated as a plaything for Nobunaga than anything else. And I could see some of that being accurate. It did seem like Nobunaga treated people more like objects for amusement than anything else. So expect some pretty crazy moments of Yasuke. Anyway, I found Kubi to just be an over-the-top, crazy, and bloody samurai film. It's very unpredictable and uneven. But most importantly is that it really is a Takeshi Kitano film. And it definitely feels like one. It might not be his best film, but at the end of the day, I was entertained. And I believe most of you will be as well. And if you're looking to watch this, I was actually able to get it for free on X. I'll provide a link for you in the description. But it is a new release, so I'm sure that a Blu-ray will be available soon. Anyway, are you a fan of Kitano films? If so, which ones are your favorite? Anyway, thanks for watching.